Try to imagine that you're the oldest of 5 kids. You're the only boy. Your mom and dad are unstable in their marriage. Therefore, we're unstable in terms of where we live. We're always moving up and down the highway. Imagine that you love your dad, but that for whatever reason, that love is not reciprocated. Imagine that you are the brunt of his frustration. Whenever he's angry, whenever he's upset about something, you get the brunt of it. Well, that was me. That was my situation. And I remember, even beyond the physical abuse, which was definitely hurtful, the thing that would always hurt me the most was the physical or the verbal abuse. That was very, very detrimental. It was hurtful to my psyche. There were times when I would be cussed out like a dog. There would be times when he'd slap me, then cuss me. And he'd do it in front of people. And it didn't matter who was around. It didn't matter if they were family. It didn't matter who they were. It just seemed as if he didn't care. I remember one specific time, my dad was employed by making vertical blinds. This was the early 90s, and vertical blinds had just really become popular. And he would make them from scratch. He'd put the track together, put all the components in the track, cut the vertical blinds, everything. I mean, he did it all until he got so good at it that he started doing it on the side for himself. And I remember we were in an office building in the Bahamas, putting up some vertical blinds for a client. And it was just he and I in the building, and I was sick. I mean, I didn't mind it so much when others were around, because he would at least to an extent curb his enthusiasm, if you will, if there were others around. But whenever we were doing things together, when he was working and I was tagged along with him and we were by ourselves, oh man, I could be backhanded without a reason, for no reason. You know, and you know what's crazy? People who have not gone through abuse, or family members who think that when you express what you've gone through that you're exaggerating, they don't understand and they don't know, either because they have not been abused or they are so hardened and cold by whatever issues they've dealt with in their life that they figure, oh, suck it up, be a man, be a girl, put your big girl panties on, put your big boy panties on, because life has taught us or has created this desensitized situation where, hey, abuse is normal. Deal with it. And so I remember when we were there that day by ourselves, I didn't say nothing. I didn't do anything to him. And he, just backhanded me. And now that I'm an older man, have been married twice, have children, I understand a little bit more now why he did the things that he did. I understand a little bit more. Because back then, I didn't see the stresses that a married man go through in a marriage. And not to give an excuse, but when I got married the first time and I was not emotionally ready and I was not emotionally prepared for the responsibilities, then I realized why some of the demons that plagued him. Because some of those demons started plaguing me. Now, praise God, I never abused my children, but drinking and smoking, the things I saw my dad do, yeah, I did those things. Cheating, laying up with a bunch of women, yeah, I did those things, and I saw my dad do them too. I began to realize that, yeah, I can understand to an extent why he treated me the way that he did. Well, my dad backhanded me and slapped me so hard. I remember we were walking down a flight of stairs, exiting that particular building where we were doing the work. And he slapped me so hard, I fell down the entire flight of stairs. And you know, I always imagined, or tried to at least ask myself, why? Why are you doing this to me? What did I do to you? I'm your son. You brought me into this earth. I didn't do anything to you. I didn't do anything wrong. I look just like you. I talk kind of like you. I like the same things you like. My dad has been for years a huge jazz fan, elevator music. And I remember loving that kind of music simply because he did, wanting to hear the music that he played, and him having this big CD book about that thick, back to back with CDs in it. I'd sneak in it from time to time and listen to some of the favorite songs that I liked when I was listening to him with him I'd go back later on and sneak through it and listen to it on my own. You know, I just remember him slapping me so hard that particular day that I fell down the flight of stairs, and I asked myself again, why? What are you doing this to me for? And you know, I could tell that he had somewhat of a heart, because at times when he would beat me up so badly, I could tell that it affected him, because then when we lived in the U.S., because there's no Walmart in the Bahamas, when we lived in the U.S., he'd take me to Walmart. And in this season, during this time of the 90s, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was my thing. It was the most popular cartoon at the time in the early 90s, 93, 94, 95. And at times when he would abuse me, when he would slap me around, curse me, he would take me to Walmart and buy me an action figure, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figure, I guess as a peace treaty, as a way to appease my hurt and my pain. He'd never say he was sorry, but at least that was one way, I guess, of feeling his love. And then again, like I said, because he was a jazz fan, we'd listen to his music, and that was another way that I felt close to him, because we'd be riding around the car, whether it was in the Bahamas or in the US, listening to smooth jazz. Artists like Norman Brown, artists like George Howard, the late George Howard, Kim Waters, one of his favorites, Paul Jackson Jr., Kirk Whalum. Those are artists that I loved growing up, and to this day still listen to much of their music. Bob James, the group Foreplay. Those were the musics that I grew up to. Yeah, hip hop was playing in the background at times, but jazz music was what I really got into, because it was my dad's music. And so that was the connection. That is how I vibed with him. Those were the only times, listening to jazz or getting punished and then getting a gift. Those were the only times when I felt close to my dad. And imagine trying to figure out, again at a young age, why these things are happening. It makes no sense, but you're putting the pieces of this puzzle together best as you can as a young person, and you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to perhaps make sense of it. And that was me, you know. But we went back and forth like this for many years, my dad and I. I never felt during that time that he really loved me, that he really cared. And my only defense at the time was my mom, or I'd bury myself in books. I love to read. So I'd bury myself in books or television. And that's how I coped. You know, it was a blessing that we lived with my grandparents in the Bahamas for so many years. I say a blessing because my grandfather, my mother's dad, who we lived with when we lived in the Bahamas, was my father figure. He was the one that I looked up to, and I learned everything about being social, about being a pleasant individual, about being a good person from my grandfather. The things that I learned from my dad was how to be irritable, angry, pissed off all the time, or how to like jazz, drink, and smoke. You know, that was really the reality of my life and how I grew up.